Welcome to the College Investor Audio Show, where we talk about the biggest issues impacting millennial money, from student loan debt to side hustles to building wealth. We will show you how to get out of debt so that you can build real wealth for the future.
Hello, welcome to another College Investor Audio Show. And these are just really tough times. We're kind of trying to adjust to the new normal, if you will. And so you've probably heard the news that the coronavirus stimulus checks might be coming soon. And let's talk about that today and what you can expect. As Congress is gearing up to send out some checks to Americans across the country to combat the recession being created by the pandemic, stores, restaurants, and more being closed, and most other Americans forced to work from home, the country's kind of gearing up for a recession or maybe even a depression that it hasn't seen in almost a century. So with lessons learned from the Depression and the Great Recession, one of the biggest ways to stimulate the economy and keep Americans financially safe is to just give them cash to spend, to either pay rent or buy food, and also just to take care of their families. So let's look at the history of stimulus checks and also give you an idea of what you can expect, how to prepare for these, and what you should seriously consider spending your stimulus check on, given what we've learned from history. Here's a quick note. Currently, the stimulus checks are a proposal. We're going to update this with all the information when it actually passes Congress, which should happen sometime this week, meaning the week of March 23rd, 2020. So the 2020 COVID-19 stimulus checks, right now, they're just a proposal. And here's what is being proposed as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES. The baseline of the proposal is adults would get $1,200 each and children $500 each. The benefit would start to phase out at a rate of $5 for every additional $100 in income. The benefit phase-out starts at $75,000 in adjusted gross income for singles, $112,500 for heads of households, $150,000 for married couples filing jointly, and then completely phase out at $99,000 for singles and $198,000 for couples, with no children. The current bill, as written, requires you to have filed a 2019 tax return, and it would send the benefit checks to the address listed on the tax return. So you actually do have to file. And a quick note, this may not be a one-time check. There are many proposals right now to make this a monthly check, but as of now, none of those have really gained much traction. All right, so here's some other 2020 stimulus programs to keep in mind. Beyond the direct checks to individuals and families, there are lots of other programs going on that will provide tax credits and loans to individuals and small businesses. We're going to update that as well as more of these programs emerge. So just keep an eye out for things at thecollegeinvestor.com, and also keep following and engaging with the podcast as well. Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That's the FFCRA. That's one of the stimulus programs. It's the biggest one right now. Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Keep that in mind. It's really expanded paid leave and sick leave for millions of Americans. It also has tax breaks to help small businesses provide these expanded benefits. The biggest component of the FFCRA is the emergency paid leave. You can qualify for leave if you meet any of the following 6 requirements. 1, you are subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. 2, you are quarantined at the direction of a health authority or healthcare provider to prevent the spread of COVID-19. 3, you are experiencing symptoms, of course, of COVID-19 and also seeking a diagnosis. 4, you're caring for another person who is subject to either the first or the second that we just mentioned. 5, you're caring for a child or another person due to closure of a school or other facility due to COVID-19. And 6, you're experiencing similar conditions that have been specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. Full-time employees can get up to 80 hours of paid leave, which would be covered by the U.S. government, so it's not a monetary burden to your employer. The amount of the benefit is determined by which reasons you qualify for. If you qualify due to reasons number 2, or I should say 1, 2, or 3, you will receive the greater of your rate of pay, federal minimum wage, or your local minimum wage. The maximum benefit is $511 per day, or a total of $5,110. If you qualify due to reasons 4, 5, and 6, which is more in line with your caring for someone, the amount is 2/3 the rate, with a maximum benefit of $200 a day or a total of $2,000. And you can find out a complete guide. I know we're running through these things pretty quickly on a podcast. Again, I'm just going to mention this website quite a bit today, thecollegeinvestor.com, and search coronavirus stimulus checks. Okay, now let's take a look at student loan relief. So the Department of Education has issued a lot of special options for families with student loan debt during this crisis. Some of the key highlights include a student loan interest freeze. We've talked about that. The ability to defer payments for at least 60 days with no penalty. And there's a lot more going on too. And it keeps changing. This is so fluid. There's a full guide to it at thecollegeinvestor.com. You can see a link. History of stimulus checks. Now let's take a look at the history. Stimulus checks aren't really a new idea. In fact, in the last 20 years, the U.S. has given out stimulus checks 3 times. They've been used as a tool to combat major recessions. Here are some of the most recent examples. 2001, the Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act. It provided $300 for single filer taxpayers and $600 for joint filers. In 2008, the Economic Stimulus Act provided $300 to $600 per person, $1,200 for married couples, and $300 per child. In 2009, the Economic Recovery Payment provided $250 for beneficiaries of select retirement programs, including Social Security's, Veteran Affairs, and Railroad Retirement. Now, let's talk about how to get your stimulus check for 2020. The Department of Treasury is hopefully going to start sending out checks to qualified households ASAP. They typically use the IRS records to send out checks to families. In past stimulus checks, you would have had to file a previous year's tax return. So it appears that probably is going to be part of the plan this year too. Current proposals require a 2019 tax year return to have been filed. If you haven't filed yet, you can get started right now. And there's some free options too you can check out at thecollegeinvestor.com. We have done some extensive reviews on different tax filing programs and software you can use. In 2008, it took 2 months to start distributing the stimulus checks after the law was signed, but President Trump is pushing to have that start a whole lot sooner this year. How does the IRS or Treasury know my address? Well, checks will start using information from tax returns. The IRS has an Update My Information tool that allows you to provide your updated address just to make sure your check isn't delayed. The tool is at IRS Update My Information tool. You can Google that. How will the IRS send my money? Direct deposit is going to be the best way to get your check because, of course, it's going to be the fastest. The Treasury Department will use your tax return information to process a direct deposit, just like your tax return. If you need a paper check, it typically adds 2 to 3 weeks to the process for the Treasury Department to print and mail your check. So here are some best ways to use your stimulus check. One of the biggest questions I get is, how am I going to use this thing to do the most good? It's a tough question because it varies so much from person to person and family to family. However, here's an order of operations just to kind of consider for the best ways to use your stimulus. First, get a bank account. If you don't have your own checking, you're going to need one like right now. Yes, you can receive a paper check and use a check cashing service, but that's just a waste of your own money and time, really. Check out the list of free checking accounts and set yourself up for success right now. If you've been denied a bank account in the past, we also have a list of second chance checking accounts too that will let you open an account as well. It's at thecollegeinvestor.com. Here are some essentials. Obviously, if you're struggling, you can take care of yourself first. Food, housing, medical supplies, children's essentials. Take care of yourself and your family. That's the biggest reason these checks are being issued in the first place, so Americans can take care of themselves in this time of crisis. You can also eliminate debt. So chances are, maybe this crisis is going to last a substantial amount of time. We really don't know. So one of the biggest things that hurts most household budgets is debt. If you have debt like credit cards or student loans, it might make sense to apply the payment to your debts. If you have student loans, there are other coronavirus relief programs for student loans, and it might not make sense to put it toward your student loan debt. You can also save for the future. Most of us have upcoming expenses we might not be able to avoid. Now, this could be a tax bill, property taxes, maybe something else. And remember, the IRS moved the tax deadlines this year, by the way. Plus, we're going into a big period of uncertainty and job losses are spiking. You need to protect yourself and your family. And cash is king. If you don't need the money, just donate it. Oh my goodness. If you are financially prepared, consider donating your stimulus check to an organization that can use that money for the most good. Since fundraisers are basically non-existent right now and charities everywhere are seeing increased demand, anything you can do will help dramatically. And also, beware of scams. With everything, and especially with all the uncertainty, if money is involved, there's a scammer trying to take it from you. We see this every year with tax refunds, robocalls pretending to be the IRS and getting you to pay them money. We're undoubtedly going to see it with the stimulus checks as well. If anyone calls you about the stimulus checks, it's a scam, 100% scam. The government does not call people. They send letters and mail. That's how you'll be contacted. Secondly, the government doesn't need your personal details. They already have it. If you need to update your information, just use the IRS website that we already provided, irs.gov. And finally, you never have to pay anyone anything to receive a check. It's your money. You don't have to pay to get it. Okay, now here are some basic FAQs that the stimulus check is generating right now. How much is it going to be? All right, so let's recap. The baseline of the proposal is adults would get $1,200 each and children $500 each. The benefit would start to phase out at a rate of $5 for every additional $100 in income. How quickly will I receive my stimulus? Well, based on history, likely about 2 months after the government passes the law. However, this is kind of a different situation, so they're working to make it much faster this time. So how does the government know where to send the check? Well, they basically just use your 2019 tax return in order to get that check. You have to have that filed. What if I need to update my information? IRS.gov, they have a tool called the Update My Information. This is where you can submit your updated address and information so that you don't miss anything from the IRS. And worse yet, you don't miss your stimulus check. Is this a one-time or maybe an ongoing check? Currently, we're thinking it's going to be a one-time check. However, there's multiple proposals to make it an ongoing thing. They just haven't gained any traction yet. How do I know if I qualify for a stimulus? You must file a 2019 tax return and meet the income requirements of the program. Currently, the checks completely phase out at $99,000 for singles and $198,000 for couples with no children. Can I use my check for student loan debt? Yeah, you can. It might not be the best way to use your check right now, given that student loan interest is completely frozen. So you might consider paying off other debts if your essentials are taken care of. You know, those types of debts that have really high interest rates first. Just kind of knock those out. Get those out of the way. You don't want to have to worry about them. There's enough to be concerned about at the moment. Please, stay safe. Wash your hands. Try not to touch your face. I know that's really hard. The whole social distancing thing, please follow the CDC guidelines, the World Health Organization, and we will absolutely be here for you to make the best decisions for your money and your financial future. That's what we do around here. Just try to eliminate as much stress as we can. Take care. Take care of each other. Thanks for stopping by the College Investor audio show, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Again, check out all of these resources and links at thecollegeinvestor.com.